If your cycles are irregular, your doctor shrugs at your symptoms, or you've been told PCOS means pregnancy will be hard, this episode is for you. I'm joined by fertility nutritionist Julia Young, who shares how she went from 7 years without a period to conceiving naturally after a few simple but powerful lifestyle shifts. We're digging into what PCOS really means, why normal lab work can miss deeper issues, and how to support your hormones in ways that your doctor probably hasn't mentioned. If you've been questioning everything and letting all the what ifs and fears creep in, this conversation is one you don't want to miss. Feeling like this whole baby making journey is never going to work out? You've done it all, diet changes, supplements, tracking your cycle, and yet the pregnancy test is negative. It's so frustrating, and you're asking yourself, why isn't this happening for us? I'm Susan Gladstein, a holistic fertility coach and mom to 7, including 2 miracle babies after a vasectomy reversal, and I get it. Being told everything looks fine by doctors while still feeling stuck can leave you feeling hopeless and confused. On this podcast, I'll share practical, natural ways to support your fertility without all the overwhelm. Forget the everything's normal talk and the rush into fertility treatments. I'm here to show you a better way. If you're ready to take practical steps that fit with God's plan for your family, you're in the right place. I truly believe that you can have the baby you've been praying for. If your cycles are unpredictable, your hormones feel all over the place, or you've been diagnosed with PCOS, there may be a gentle, natural way to support your fertility that no one's told you about yet. No meds, no needles, no invasive treatments. Just a science-backed approach that helps improve egg and sperm quality, lower inflammation that disrupts hormone balance, and support your nervous system because, let's be honest, the stress of the wait is real. If you're ready to support your body the way God designed it to function, book a free call with me at susangladstein.com/phototherapy. This might be the missing piece that you didn't even know to ask about. Today's episode is going to speak right to the heart of so many of you who are in the thick of trying to conceive, but maybe you feel like your body just is not cooperating. If you've ever been told that you have PCOS, or you're dealing with irregular cycles or hormone chaos, or even just wondering, can nutrition really move the needle? This one's for you. I'm joined by Julia Young, a BANT-registered nutritional therapist who specializes in fertility nutrition. And she works with women who are trying to conceive and feel like their bodies aren't doing what they're supposed to, especially when it comes to PCOS, hormone imbalance, irregular cycles, or even preparing for IVF. I would love for you to kind of share your story. Take us back to that season when you're undergoing multiple fertility treatments, including IUI and IVF, because that's a big topic in our world here, and how discovering the transformative impact of nutrition, lifestyle, and even supplements ultimately led you to this work that you do.
Sure, yeah. So yeah, my story. I mean, I'm there's a happy ending. So I have two teenage boys now. So there was a happy ending for me, but we did struggle to get there, and it all started with my husband and I wanting to have a family, but at the time I didn't have any periods. I've been on the contraceptive pill for a number of years. I came off it in order for us to start a family, and my cycle just didn't return. And first few months I thought, oh, it will come back, before, and time went on and just nothing. And so I went to my doctor. We had some tests done, some hormone tests, and I was told everything's normal, just leave it, kind of thing. So we left a bit more time, still waiting. Again, nothing happened. And really the message from the doctors was, your only solution if you want to start a family is to do fertility treatment. There's kind of nothing else for you. There was no talk about trying to find out why my cycle hadn't returned, what was going on in my body. It was just go for fertility treatment. I didn't know about nutrition then. I didn't know all the things that we could do. So that's what we did. We went straight to fertility treatment, number of rounds. So it didn't work straight away for us, which was very frustrating. And then unfortunately we had a miscarriage along the way as well. And then it did eventually work. So we were very lucky, and we had our family. It was only after having my children that I period that something is not right here in my body. And I started doing my research, own investigations. Again, the doctor said, no, don't worry about it. It's fine not having a period. Later in life, you can go on HRT if you need to, but hormone replacement therapy, but you basically it doesn't matter. And to me, that didn't seem right. So I then changed my diet. I changed my lifestyle. There was a lot of work that I needed to do. I added in some really good supplements, and to my amazement, my cycle returned. So that was after 7 years of amenorrhea or absent periods, and finally my cycle returned. And I couldn't believe that by making these changes, my body could get back to how it needed to be. And that's really what inspired me to go on and then study nutrition. I learned the power of nutrition. I wanted to learn more. So I then went and did a 3-year diploma in nutritional therapy. And then my goal was always to help people, because I didn't want people to have to go through what I've been through. So I then decided to specialize in fertility and did extra training in that area. And along the way, I was diagnosed with PCOS, or polycystic ovarian syndrome. And that's why I have a special interest in supporting women with that in that area as well, because it can be particularly tough if you're trying to conceive with PCOS. So kind of that's my story, and I support both couples and individuals on their fertility journey to help them get their dream family.
Well, and I appreciate you so much talking about. I mean, I feel like it's so common. You go to the doctor, you're in the normal range. In fact, I just did a podcast episode recently about that if somebody's listening, they could go check out why normal doesn't mean optimal, because it's based off of the general population, people who are unhealthy, who are sick, and it's just the normal range of those people, and that's not really the best. And so it can be so frustrating when you feel like something's not clicking, but you're told, don't worry about it, just keep trying, especially when it takes way longer than you want it to, or you have the added pressure of feeling like, oh, I'm getting quote unquote too old. Because that's another thing. You go into I mean, I had a baby at 40 and then another one at 44. So I definitely got a lot of, oh, you're advanced maternal age and all of this stuff, or even just the expectation that I was going to have complications because of my age. And so there's all of these sort of fears that kind of can come up with all of that. But certainly, getting the diagnosis of PCOS, especially, can be kind of confusing and frustrating, because a lot of times, and I'm using a very generalized, most doctors are not super educated on, especially on the nutrition side, at least here in the States. So can you kind of break down what's going on in the body and how it can impact fertility when you get that PCOS diagnosis?
Sure. So PCOS, firstly, to let people know that, if you have got this diagnosis or you suspect you have it, it's the most common female endocrine condition or disorder. So it's very common. Many people do have this, and it's characterized by disrupted ovarian function. And I think the name PCOS, or polycystic ovaries, is a bit confusing, because it gives the idea that you've got lots of these cysts in the ovaries, but it's not actually cysts, it's talking about your follicles. So with polycystic ovaries, you have lots of these follicles, but they tend to get stuck, so you don't get this one dominant follicle that releases an egg every month. And there are very much specific symptoms around PCOS. So for example, it's characterized by excess androgen hormones. These are the kind of male type hormones like testosterone, characterized by potentially a lack of ovulation, or having these irregular or longer cycles, and things like excess hair growth, or hair growth in places that you don't want it. Acne, particularly around the jawline, is very common. Male pattern baldness. And excess weight is a very common symptom of PCOS. So women either finding they're gaining weight, or struggling to maintain or lose weight. That's very common. There's also an increased risk of diabetes if you have PCOS. and it's associated also with high cholesterol and also with gut and thyroid issues. So it's a metabolic condition. There's lots going on in the body with PCOS. It's not just a case of, eat a bit less, sorry, move more and everything, you'll lose weight and everything will be fine. It can be incredibly difficult, for example, for women to lose weight. They need to if they have PCOS. And so people need to be kind to themselves. It's not easy. And to know that it's not a disease, but it's a more a collection of a syndrome, a collection of symptoms of PCOS.
I appreciate that explanation because in my work as a holistic fertility practitioner, like I like to look at the big picture, not just one particular number. And I find that for a lot of people, that's kind of what their doctor's approach is. You go into an appointment, you may have 15, maybe 20 minutes if you're lucky, and they're just looking at a snapshot in time. And I know lots of people who've been sort of just dismissed because everything was normal. But then when I look at labs, there are things that are telling me about these underlying issues because I'm looking at all of them. They're all interrelated. And that's, again, something I don't think that we're often taught about, especially with our hormones and how if one thing's off, it kind of triggers another thing. And certainly, the gut being sort of the second brain and how important that is. So I find that when I'm asking a lot of questions about what someone is eating, it's not normally asked about, I think, in appointments. And so they don't see maybe the value in that. But what are some of the biggest nutrition myths that you sort of hear around PCOS?
Yeah, there's loads I hear actually. One very common one is that carbohydrates are the enemy. So particularly again, if women are struggling with their weight or they need to lose weight, they'll think the solution is just to cut out all carbs, go on a sort of ketogenic type diet. And it's true that the refined carbohydrates, so they're the ones I like to call those as kind of white fluffy carbohydrates, things like your white bread, your pastries, all the yummy things, white pasta, all things like that. And the sugary foods, yes, they are probably problematic and they're not going to be good for our health. But they will spike our insulin levels, and we know that around sort of 70% of women with PCOS have this insulin resistance type PCOS. So it's really important that we manage our insulin levels. But eliminating all carbs can make it particularly difficult to follow a way of eating. It can make it very restrictive. It can lead to nutritional deficiency. So you could be losing out on various nutrients that are really important, particularly fiber, which we know is really important for supporting the gut and supporting our hormones, etc. And generally just making it more difficult. So, we don't want to be cutting out all carbs. There's definitely a place for carbs, but maybe when we have those carbohydrates, the portion sizes and the types of carbohydrates are what we should be focusing on rather than a blanket, we shouldn't have any at all kind of thing. So I think that's a really common one. Another one being you have to lose weight to support PCOS. Now, not every woman needs to lose weight if they have PCOS. There is this type of PCOS known as lean PCOS, where insulin resistance may still be a problem, but weight is not an issue for you. So it's still important that we manage your blood sugar levels, but it may not be that you actually need to lose weight. So that isn't necessarily the case for everyone. Again, it creates sort of unnecessary pressure if you're thinking, I've got to lose all this weight, in order to improve my PCOS. So very much my approach is focusing on your health. So if you're healthy, the weight will naturally come off. So if you're eating your healthy foods, healthy way of life, then the weight comes up rather than I need to lose weight to get healthy. It's almost get healthy to lose weight is probably the best term to use. Again, it can be very restrictive if we feel we need to lose lots of weight. And so, even losing just a small amount of weight, a small percentage of body fat can be all that's needed actually to improve symptoms. So not a sort of blanket, you have to go on a crash diet and lose loads of weight. And the other one, which I think comes up a lot, is that certain foods should always be banned, and dairy and gluten come up a lot in the community about you shouldn't have dairy, you shouldn't have gluten. Again, I don't believe it's a blanket restriction for everyone. For some people, if dairy and gluten are a problem for you, or you have celiac disease or something like that, then yes, they should come out of the diet. But again, it might be a case of reducing the amount you're having, but they can be helpful for some women as well. So with these things, it should very much be personalized to the individual, and it shouldn't be blanket taking everything out, because again, that becomes very restrictive and a difficult diet to follow as well. So yeah, we don't want to be doing that for sure.
And I find that, I mean, obviously if there's this added stress of like I've got to lose weight, I've got this diagnosis, like that again just goes into spiking your cortisol and, the stress hormones, which throws everything else off. So it's not helpful to do that. And I find too that a lot of women who feel like they need to lose a lot of weight or whatever, then they end up restricting their calories too much to where their body's in this survival mode. And if you're in survival mode, you're not creating a welcoming environment to have another life form there taking your nutrients and all of that. So you need to really have that good sort of foundation. And certainly I find there's so many I don't know, just misinformation. Everybody thinks that like worrying about your blood sugar is just for diabetics or pre-diabetics, and it's just so important for overall health. And certainly you talked about, fiber being so important, where fiber will actually slow your blood sugar spike response. So you kind of more are in a rolling hill instead of these spikes and valleys. So I'm always a big fan of like never eat your carbs naked. So pairing
Yeah.
them with things like protein and healthy fats to help slow that spike is something that I recommend. But if someone is feeling kind of overwhelmed, they don't know where to start, what are a few powerful changes that they could make to really help support their hormones and their cycles?
Yeah, so I would say start sort of one meal at a time. So small changes lead to big small changes lead to kind of big changes later on, basically. So it's what you can do consistently on a daily basis. So, for example, let's start and look at your breakfast. Let's see. Firstly, are you having breakfast? Because a lot of women are cutting out breakfast because they think, well, it will help me lose weight. They've heard fasting can help them, all sorts of things. And actually, with PCOS, it's really important that we don't put that added stress on the body. You mentioned stress. We want to be eating pretty soon after we wake up to bring down our cortisol levels and have a healthy breakfast so that's going to, get everything nice and stable and get us nourished. So, firstly, thinking about how you start your day. How do you get up? What is that first thing that you have in the morning? Is it a cup of coffee? Are you adding more cortisol and fuel to the stress fire kind of thing? Or is it a nice nourishing breakfast that has got your fiber in there, that's got your healthy fats, and it's got a good level of protein? And that would be a really good start. And so many women that I speak to, they're starting off the day with maybe just a coffee, or they're rushing to a coffee shop and grabbing a coffee and a pastry, and that is putting you on that blood sugar roller coaster. And then they wonder why sort of 2 hours later they're crashing and they're tired and they're reaching for a snack to give them some energy. And what as I say, if we've got a good source of protein in there, maybe it's eggs, maybe it's some nice Greek yogurt or something like that. We've got maybe some nuts and seeds, some low sugar fruits like berries and things like that. A nice nourishing yogurt bowl, for example, that's going to keep you full up for hours, and you're not going to be reaching for a snack sort of mid morning. That should keep you going till lunch, and that's a really good start for the day. And it will help your food choices later on in the day as well. If you can start the day well, your food choices later on are going to be better. So nail one meal at a time, and then move on. When you've got your breakfast nailed and you feel that's going really well, then let's look at another meal. So definitely that's one tip I'd give. And also look at where you feel you need the most support. So, for example, sleep is really important. We know sleep is important for general health. We know sleep is important for fertility. It's also really important for women with PCOS. So if you're not sleeping well, you're not going to make the best food choices the next day anyway. You're tired, you're going to reach for those high carbohydrate, sugary foods to keep you going. So, getting to bed earlier, getting that good quality sleep might be the first thing that you need to get working well, so that then you have the energy and you're in the right mindset to make those nutritional food choices. So I really am very much about taking it slow and looking at the thing that you think is going to move the needle the quickest for you and start at that point. And for everyone, it's going to be different.
Yes, I wholeheartedly agree, and my approach is very similar, kind of taking the sort of big picture and where can you get your easier wins. But I will say, so I've had gestational diabetes with three of my four kids, and even in this last pregnancy, everybody kind of looked at me like, "You're super healthy. Like, how do you have this?" And I'm like, "Well, first of all, I don't eat like this, so you just made me drink all of this sugary stuff, and my body's like, I don't know what to do with this." So there might be something to that. I don't know. But I will say, like, I know after studying metabolism super in depth and blood sugar and how to manage all of that, that I know when you get poor sleep, it affects your fasting glucose levels. And it was just interesting to me in the process because, of course, I had to keep a food log and take my blood sugar to turn it into the dietitian, which is a little bit annoying to me because I'm like, I already know all of this. I'm going to be fine. Um, but I know this by, by studying it, but to actually see its effect on me on nights that in my third trimester did not sleep very well and seeing that my fasting glucose would be maybe 10 points higher than it would be if I'd gotten a good night's sleep. So it's like you already start sort of in that. And there's all these studies done that people who get poor sleep or less than like 6 hours, that their calorie intake is increased by I think it's 200 to 300 calories just
Mm.
because of the lack of sleep. But I think that's because you start, your fasting glucose is higher. And so your body, anytime it dips down, is like freaking out, wants to feel safe. So then it's like, feed me, I'm dying. I need some more sugar. When maybe in reality, you don't really. It's just your body trying to maintain equilibrium. So that was really fascinating to me. And also in that process of like, normally my go-to breakfast would be a couple of eggs, throw in some bacon, add in spinach, tomato, and some mozzarella. And to see that I would also have like Greek yogurt with chia seeds and nuts and some berries, that my blood sugar levels would be the same. And you think like, oh, well, the yogurt and all that was much more sweet tasting than the egg version, but the blood sugar levels were the same because of that pairing of protein, healthy fats, and fiber in each meal. So it's like, yes, you can still have, your sweet, quote unquote, sweet breakfast if you pair things in the right way. So I appreciate that you talked about that because sleep and starting off your day on a good note are so powerful
Yeah,
for the whole rest of the
absolutely.
things. How much can lifestyle actually shift things for PCOS? I mean, what changes do you see kind of making the biggest impact? And maybe you can share some of your own things that you learned in your process, because that was a long trial and error, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, for me, in my process, my diet wasn't particularly healthy. So I was drinking a lot of sort of diet fizzy drinks, diet sodas, which I didn't realize that they weren't good for me. Um, I was following a very low fat diet at the time, and I was over exercising. So, you know, it was a real combination of things that, and the fact that I'd been on the contraceptive pill and my hormones didn't regulate, that my periods didn't come back. But I was quite scared of eating fat, and everything would be low fat. And I know a lot of the thinking around that. The research has definitely changed around that. But in terms of the people I speak to, people do now realize that fat is important. But there's still, for some women, there's this worry that I should be eating fat free, or I should be eating low fat foods, especially if I need to lose weight because they're lower in calories. And yes, they are. But we need fats. We need fats to make our hormones are made from fats. Steroid hormones are made from healthy fats. So we need to be taking in these fats in the diet. It's really important. And we know also that often, I don't know about in the States, but often the no fat or the low fat foods here, they'll add in sugars, they'll add in sweeteners in order to make it more satisfying. So we know that's going to have an impact on your blood glucose levels. It's going to have an impact on negative impact on your gut bacteria. So even though you think you're getting something that's low in calorie, actually what it's doing inside your body may well be a different thing. So it's really important not to be afraid of fat, and eating healthy fats, I think, is really important. So, in terms of lifestyle, yes, diet for me, being a nutritionist, diet is always, food first approach. I want to go for the food first, but there are lots of other lifestyle factors that play into this as well. And definitely the stress piece is really important. And just the stress of not conceiving. Of course, that's very stressful when you're getting a diagnosis, when you're told that the only option is fertility treatment, for example. How can you not be stressed when that's the news? And I think it's almost, managing your stress is probably almost one of the hardest things to do, because we can all potentially follow a meal plan or a diet plan, try and go to bed earlier, do all those things, but actually when someone says just calm down and don't be stressed, that's probably the last thing that you want to do. So that's a really important thing. And I'm always talking to my clients about just finding some time for you, even if it's just 10 minutes a day. Can you find something that either you and your partner do together, or even just you on your own, that you love doing, that you can do every day? And that could just be sitting somewhere quietly and reading a book, or listening to some of your favorite music, or having a nice bath or something like that. Just something that's going to get you in that nice parasympathetic relaxation mode, basically. And I think stress is a key one. I think exercise also is important when it comes to PCOS, particularly for helping to bring down those blood glucose levels. Again, if we can, walking after meals is great for bringing down the blood glucose levels. So even if you only got 10 minutes, after your lunch when you're at work, and you can get outside, or you have the option of a 10-minute walk before or after lunch, have your lunch first and then get out and do your walk, and that will help to normalize those blood glucose levels. But we need to be careful again about the exercise. Again, if you need to lose weight, there's the tendency to go out and do some really hardcore, maybe HIIT training or running and things like that. I was doing a lot of running back in the day. I know that didn't help me. That again is a stressor on the body. Our body doesn't want to be stressed. So actually we need to do things that are calming for the body, and that could be walking, as I said, something like yoga, or I think strength training is great as well. Again, it's particularly if you need to lose weight or support your weight, building muscle, really important for now and later life as well. So making sure we're sitting less and moving about is really important. The sleep we've talked about. And there's the obvious things like smoking and alcohol. We know they don't help with fertility at all. So smoking should be out. Alcohol we want to reduce. Not necessarily it has to all come out. I work with people where they're at. If alcohol plays quite a big part in your life, we might look at reducing it and then seeing how that goes. But there's no nutritional value in alcohol, so that's one to think about. But also an important one is exposure to environmental toxins as well. So we know that we're surrounded by toxins, whether that's pollution, plastics out there, all the products we're using, the personal care products, the cleaning products. There's all these endocrine disrupting chemicals in those, and they can affect egg quality and sperm quality as well. So we want to make sure we're reducing the exposure to toxins as well. That's really important. So we look at looking at the lifestyle and what you might be exposed to is something to focus on as well.
I too was I drank a lot of soda, and I grew up in Texas, so it was the land of, meat and potatoes kind of thing. My balanced plate, if you will, was very, very carb heavy, because, it would be like corn and peas and mashed potatoes and then a meat. And then you're like, wow, that's a lot of carbs. But it wasn't until I really started diving into sort of macronutrients and what is, a carb, what is a fat, and all of those things. So I think that for a lot of us, it's just we aren't super well educated on what food choices we should be making. So we think that we're eating healthy. You think about um, for a lot of women, it's like, maybe they eat a big salad, but it has, no protein or not enough protein on it. There's no fats because you're having the low fat dressing and trying to avoid them or whatever. And so it's like you're just not getting the nutrients that you need to support your bodily functions. I know for me, I spent a lot of years over exercising because I was trying to I was under eating and over exercising because I wanted the certain aesthetic. And it wasn't until I truly about nutrition, the importance of protein, the power of muscle building. I mean, who doesn't want to be like sitting and watching TV and burning fat, which you can only like that muscle is the best indicator of that, or even just understanding the power of movement. I mean, you think like, oh, I've got to get this workout in, but like you actually burn more calories if you stay moving more throughout the day. I mean, they say that sitting is the new smoking. So I spent a lot of my days pre 2020 sitting a whole lot. And then when the world was kind of shutting down and there was nothing else to do, I found myself riding my bike and getting outside in the sun and all of a sudden my mood was improved and I was like so euphoric. I felt like a child again, and I hadn't really felt that since I was a kid. And I think it was just because I was so used to going from work to home to work to home and not really getting out moving. So in the 2 years that it took us to conceive our first baby after our reversal, all of those things that you just talked about, the foundational health things, were things that I was working on. And of course, I wanted a baby like yesterday. But I wouldn't trade all of that foundational work, which really started probably 5 years before that, like really understanding my body and even just releasing a lot of emotional um, turmoil that I had had from childhood that I just kind of held on to. I'm a people pleaser by nature. So it was a whole process that took way longer than I wanted it to because I wanted baby yesterday. But all of that stuff that led to just an overall healthy foundation, I wouldn't trade for the world now. You know, obviously having a baby at almost 45, like I can definitely say good health is so valuable. Like you can't really replace it. And I know that for you, there's some supplements that you recommend. Are there any that you kind of commonly use? Now, I will preface this with I'm more of the opinion that really we want to use supplements strategically and really focus on food first and nutrition and then bring in, that's kind of where I stand. But are there some things that you use or suggest to commonly support women who have PCOS?
Yeah, so I'm on very much the same view as you, as the food first approach. And, many people come to me and they just want to know, just tell me what supplements to take, thinking it's a magic pill. And it really isn't. There's the common phrase of you can't out supplement a bad diet. And it's very true. You're just wasting your time and your money if you're just going to take the supplements and not make the food changes. So always start with food first. But having said that, our soils are depleted. We do need potentially additional nutrients for fertility, for PCOS. So I think that supplements can play a role. But also I caveat that with, what one supplement might work for one person doesn't necessarily mean it will work for another. I have a lot of people that come to me saying, oh, my friend took this and she got pregnant. Should I take it? Your friend is completely made up completely differently to you. Just because it worked for someone else, it doesn't necessarily mean it works for you. So you really should get them personalized to you. And also, I get a lot of people coming to me and they're taking a whole list of supplements as well, 30, 40, they'll come a shopping list full of supplements. And people don't realize that your liver has to process every supplement that you take. So it's really important that, quite often I'm actually stripping out what people are taking and saying, look, stop taking that. You don't need that anymore. And let's look at what's going to be, the game changer for you. In terms of PCOS, probably one of the most useful compounds is something called inositol or myo-inositol. It's a naturally occurring compound in the body. And we do get a small amount in things like grains and fruit and legumes, but it can be really useful for improving insulin resistance, insulin sensitivity, for helping to reduce testosterone levels and helping to regulate the menstrual cycle. So inositol can be really helpful for some women. B vitamins as well. We know they're important for, like your folate, really important for fertility anyway, and preventing your tube defects in the baby. Vitamin B12, really important. B vitamins help our insulin receptors to work properly. And if we're stressed, we tend to use up our B vitamins very quickly. So always look at making sure they're they've got good levels of those. Vitamin B6 also really important for things like progesterone production, for general hormone production. Vitamin D, women with PCOS can often be low in vitamin D. And also depends on, are you getting outside? Are you living somewhere where there is lots of exposure to sunlight, etc.? Are you getting vitamin D that you need? Vitamin D is stored in fat tissue. So if you have a higher percentage body fat, you may be less able to utilize your vitamin D as it tends to be bound up to the fat tissue. So you actually may have a higher need for your vitamin D. And research shows that it helps to improve insulin resistance and ovulation rates. I tend to say with vitamin D, you can take too much of it as well. So always test your levels before supplementing. And then a few other things. Chromium can be helpful for managing cravings. If you're someone that really struggles with your sort of food cravings, chromium can help. Magnesium, I love. We call it nature's tranquilizer, really good for sort of relaxation. There's different forms, particular form that you can take glycinate in the evening to help with sleep and relaxation, or if you're having problems with your gut and constipation, then magnesium citrate can be really helpful. So depending on your need, really useful. And omega-3 fats as well. So your omega-3 supplementation, again, we get that through our sort of oily fish, chia seeds, things like that, but it can be useful to supplement with that as well, and helps to reduce inflammation in the body. And if a woman is looking to conceive, a lot of these can be found in like a really good quality prenatal supplement, but you may need to top up some levels on top of that just to make sure you're getting everything that you need.
I'm glad that you talk about good quality because well, first of all, I've had clients when I look at their lab work, they may be on certain supplements, but their body is not absorbing them for whatever reason. Maybe it's, poor hydration levels, maybe it's gut health issues. But if you're not absorbing them properly, for example, if you just looked at somebody's B12 and it looks like, wow, it's really high and great, but they're not actually like absorbing it, or they have some issues there, then it is sort of just a waste of time. But then there's also ones that are not as good quality. So I think that's where it's really important to not just go off of what Mary's sister's cousin, what worked for her, and actually getting somebody that's knowledgeable and can help find good quality products to use that are going to be unique to you and your body and what you actually need. So that being said, I would love for you to share if somebody's got questions, they want to reach out to you, how do they find you and how can you help them?
Sure. So I'm on Instagram. That's probably where I'm most of the time. At Julia Young Nutrition is my handle on Instagram. My website is juliayoungnutrition.com. And if someone wants to find out a bit more about working with me, I offer a free 30-minute fertility review. So they're welcome to book one of those. And there's a link on my website to book that. I also have a free ebook that people are welcome to download, and I'll give you the link. It's called From PCOS to Pregnancy, and it's really looking at root cause strategies to help optimize your fertility and reduce your PCOS. So we're looking at, it's really important we focus on that root cause, and that's what my ebook is all about. And it's going to give you a few starting points in terms of the foods we want to be adding in and what we might want to be reducing in the diet as well. So I think it's a good place to kind of get started with it all.
That's awesome. And I'll make sure to include all of that in the show notes as well so that they can find you. Is there anything else that you want to add to this community of people who just so desperately want a baby like yesterday? They've gone through, or maybe they're thinking about spending a lot of money on a procedure to return their spouse's, sperm parameters and all of that, and just really want a baby, but it's not happening as fast as they wanted to.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people I speak to, they just like you said, they want it to happen tomorrow or yesterday. And we know it takes, for example, 3 months to mature an egg and roughly that time to produce a healthy batch of sperm. So ideally, I like to work with my clients for that amount of time. And that can seem scary when you want it to happen straight away. And if you're being pushed into fertility treatment and all that sort of thing, I'm not, I went through fertility treatment. I'm not against it, but if you are going down that road, you want it to be as successful as it can be. And you want to be going in with the best quality eggs and sperm that you can be. And IVF, it's great, but it's not going to it's bringing the egg and the sperm together. but it's not going to do anything for the quality. After all, the aim shouldn't just be to get pregnant. It should be to have a healthy pregnancy and a healthy baby. That needs to be the goal. And if it means you take a few months just to work on that and work on your health, these are things, as you said, that you're going to be learning for the rest of your life. And, I like to teach people and help them so that they make these changes forever, not just for 3 months or 2 months or 9 months or whatever. And it's a real investment in their health if they do that. So, just a little bit of extra time can really pay off. And maybe you won't need that fertility treatment. I've had quite a few clients that come through my door and they've managed to actually cancel the fertility treatment in the end because it's happened naturally, and that is potentially possible as well. So do the groundwork first before rushing into anything else. It would be my advice.
I love that. I have an episode about, when is IVF right? Because I'm kind of the same opinion. It's like when you're feeling rushed into the treatments because you want it to happen right away and you're not getting to the root cause, you're not leading with the most optimal egg and sperm. And obviously, I had a guest on my podcast, Dr. Scalar, and he had talked about like everybody wants to give their children the very best. And it kind of was like, of course you do. Like, there's no parent that doesn't want to give their kids either the best version of them or the best of whatever it is. And so if you're in this rush, but you're not willing to put forth what it's going to take to get the best quality, I mean, your makeup affects generations to come. So like you would want to put forth the best effort for your health. And certainly for me having children, I mean, I have a 22 and almost 19-year-old, and then I have, a newborn and 4-year-old. So I got the luxury of having a redo, but I'm a completely different mom in my 40s than I was in my 20s, where I didn't prioritize my health. So now I have a 4-year-old who knows to prioritize protein. She's got long, luxurious locks, and everybody always compliments her on her hair, and she's super strong and capable of doing all these things. But she will be the first to tell you if you don't, if you eat your carbs naked, she's going to lecture you on your protein intake. But her life is going to be drastically different because that's just how she's growing up. That's just what we do. And it's not like a lot of the other kids her age. My mom was asking about her going and eating at McDonald's. And I was like, I mean, she's not had it. It's fine if you want to take her. Like, I'm not overly freaked out about it, but I'll be surprised if she doesn't lecture you on that, because she does at the kids at the park when they bring she'll say, that's not healthy. And part of me feels a little bit bad, but at the same time, it's like, well, what she's saying is true. Like, there are healthier options. But anyway, all that to say that it is so important to have a healthy foundation and how that impacts your kids and generations to come. Because of course we're always focused on the end goal of getting pregnant. What beyond that, when you're sleep deprived or you're trying to breastfeed or, have the energy to connect with your spouse at the end of the day when kids are running around, like, you want to be able to have those good, healthy foundations to survive those days in the beginning. And I mean, it doesn't get any easier when you have teenagers. It's like a whole different set of problems for sure. Which I have the luxury of knowing both ends of the spectrum. But anyway, I appreciate you taking the time so much to share your wisdom and just love on a community of people who are just excited to be parents, because I think that's like the greatest thing. And I appreciate what you do and your mission to help people have babies, because I do think that they're the greatest.
They certainly are. Well, thank you very much for having me. I've really enjoyed it.
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining me on Conceiving After Vasectomy Reversal. I hope you're feeling encouraged and more hopeful on your journey to growing your family. If you enjoyed today's episode, please take a moment to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who could use a little extra support. I absolutely love reading your reviews. They mean the world to me. Like, seriously, words of affirmation are my love language. So let's stay connected. Find me on Instagram at Conceiving After VR, and join our Conceiving After Vasectomy Reversal Facebook community for even more support and encouragement. I believe that God placed the desire for a child on your heart for a reason, and I'm grateful to walk alongside you in this season, to encourage you, and to help you find joy in the journey, trusting that His plan is greater than we could ever imagine.
Thanks for listening.